How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the James Loud Podcast. And today, our special guest is Ray Bama, founder of Runtz, Bay Area OG. How you doing today?
I'm good, brother. How are you?
Fantastic. Yeah, we were diving into the GDP conversation, and it's amazing how it's gone, right? You don't see it anywhere. You know, because people would be fetching top dollar for that if they had it.
I remember 50 packs of GDP for $5,000.
Yeah,
all the way up.
All day long.
All day long. Yeah. Like, that was a good price. I used to get them for 48. It wasn't even like I was waxing anybody. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And, you know, being from the Bay, that's all people wanted. There
was a point where that's all people wanted. And this is like the 2000s for sure. Like mid 2000s, it was the hype. There was Blue Dream that was even popular during then. Yeah. In that time too. But it was a finicky plant in the sense that it took 31 days to veg when I used to grow it. Mm-hmm. You know, and I used to grow in these octagons, and we used to grow small plants.
And how many days of flower?
And so that was, you know, that would like 60 days of flower. We did everything around the same time. Okay. It was like 60, 63.
Yeah.
I think you go to a little early on that one too, but it was dark purple. And so all the GDP I've seen lately is like this, not it GDP. It's like, oh yeah, it's GDP. Sure, maybe it has a similar nose or this or that.
I haven't seen real GDP probably since about 2013.
Yeah.
And when it was gone, it was gone.
Yeah.
It was like there were certain pockets in Oakland you could still get it in. Like,
right, or Richmond.
Yeah, or Richmond that you could still get it in.
Right.
But like on a scale of like how it was, like if you were from the Bay, you knew, you grew up smoking GDP.
Yeah. And
like you loved it. There's not one person that's today didn't like purple.
It was gassy and floral and special. Like, and it was unmistakable to smoke. Like, I guarantee you, if somebody passed a joint, I'd be like, yeah, that's GDP. It's unmistakable.
It's unmistakable for sure. And that pheno or that cut has, you know, that taste has been gone from my memory.
Yeah.
Since like about 2013 at least, right?
Right.
And it's like, how did it leave like that? You know, I think like OG, probably OG was after that, right?
OG was kind of after that. Sours and OGs and the gases kind of.
Yeah, the gases
but nobody
came after
wanted purple. There was like, I remember a bunch of purple. There was like the purple Kush. There was a purple Cadillac. We had, you know, when we had dispensaries back then, there was GDP, Urkel, you know, there was a handful of these purple genetics that were going around, and then all of a sudden they were gone. Nobody would pay for purple.
Nobody would pay for purple.
Yeah, and people wanted gas, and I think even like the train wreck was done by then.
It's kind of like what happened to Cookie though.
Yeah.
Now you think about it, nobody really has a good cookie cut from back then. That's like, you're like, oh, this is it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We're coming back with it though. Same thing with
it.
Literally, we're coming back.
Now that we're locked in, I got to see all the stuff when it comes out, man.
Yeah, I have a sample of the cookies here too. Like, we pheno hunted cookies cross. You know, it was the platinum cross from back in the day, and like literally found an old school cookies that's just like the original Girl Scouts. Yeah. That I remember. That's that bready. It's got gassy. It's got
doughy,
the cherry,
right?
doughy.
Yeah, cherry, doughy.
But it's that one that smokes down to the roach. It's got that flavor, and that's why people loved it. But that's gone. It's drifted. I believe the genetics have changed. So there's people with the cut still. Even the Thin Mint cut isn't what it used to be.
No, it's not. So do you think that's what happened with GDP? It got so watered down. The cut got so watered down. This is tissue culture, right?
Right. It's
so pre-tissue
culture.
It just got so watered down that people just were like, fuck it. Like,
I think that maybe that even changed too. I'm not sure, because I've seen GDP from other people, and it's like this greener version of GDP, or Ken's GDP isn't the GDP that I remember.
Ken's wasn't Bay Area GDP.
No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
It was his own thing and whatever,
Ken's was
but it
different
wasn't
than from what we had in the Bay.
Yeah, we had the guy from GDP on here. Myers,
from Ken's?
Yeah, so, no, not Ken's, but we had Jimmy from Myers Creek. And Jimmy from Myers Creek is the guy that sold the flower to the dispensary, the third floor, where they named it GDP. He didn't care what they called it. And he went into the story, but basically he brought the flower and he was gifted the cut. It wasn't the same cut as Ken's though, for sure.
And did he know it was special?
He knew it was special. It was extremely special, but he doesn't even have it anymore. None of these guys do. You know?
And remember back then too, going to the club was like a treat. Going to the dispensary, like when it was still medical, right? It was such a treat because it would be a level above street weed. Now I think street weed is better than dispensary weed, right? It's hard to find good weed in the dispensary. When I go if I'm down and out and I'm driving and there's no other option and I have to stop at a dispensary, it sucks.
Right.
It sucks because most of the weed is not fresh. Most of the weed been sitting.
Yeah.
Most of the weed hasn't got QC to a level that we would appreciate, right?
No.
And like I just remember being a kid, like even the Cookies 215 days, you know, Connect when that was new over there on Mission, you go there and you would get some fire. You'd be happy.
There was multiple types of fire, and it wasn't just like all these. Like now, I see just mostly gelato derivatives, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like everything's like these gelato derivatives now, and back in the day, it was like, you want like crazy ass sativas. They got some crazy stuff, right?
They had crazy shit at all times. And back then it was like, you would go to almost any dispensary and you would find something that was better than anything you could get on the street.
Oh, right? Yeah. San Francisco had so many little sweet pockets.
So many good dispensaries too, right? Like, remember Green Door? You would go to
Green Door.
Purple. Yeah.
There was on Ocean, there was a dispensary, and that dispensary had some crazy stuff that nobody else
Ocean,
had.
like by the college, right?
Right by the college.
What was that dispensary? I forgot. You had you had that one. You had Mr. Nice. You had 12th and Geary, where the Hemp Center.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of places that were like a treat to go to. I used to love going to dispensary. So then it was like, now, having a legal brand and being in the dispensary didn't hold that same nostalgia of back in the day, right? Because it used to be such a treat. But, when Cookies Hollywood and shit first opened, it was like a movie. Yeah. I just remember like everyone would go there. It was like the mecca center of the weed game at that time, right? And it was so different because we were used to the medical, the 215 days, where it's like anybody who has good packs, go stop over here. You could go, do your thing. It became so bureaucratic and, weird. It just, and that was right when Runtz was founded. It was 2017, then 2018 we went legal, and I was like, fuck, man. If this shit stayed the way it was, we would have been able to be in the game. I love that medical era of cannabis.
Right. And me too. It was special.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, Zaw Olympics had that feel. It had that energy. I haven't felt that energy since the old like the Sessions and the High Times Cannabis Cups, right?
Yeah, I used to love those High Times Cannabis
deli
Cups.
style. We got people with chopsticks with, serving it up. And I love that. I love that part about the industry because that's where you see the passion.
No, for sure. And that's, we saw some familiar faces back then, right? Like you would go to them events, you would see homies that you ain't seen. The same people, you know what I mean? And now I feel like it's more of a money grab. Not a lot of people care as much. Not a lot of people are putting in attention to detail. And then like the New York shit kind of fucked everything up because it's like now it's like you're selling packaging. You even though New York people want fire, it's just it's a marketing. There's so many consumers who are uninformed, right?
Right.
They take a couple hits. It might be a foggy high, might not be a clear high, might not be a good high, but they're high. So they'll
buy terp weed too.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like they buy the sprayed stuff.
Yeah, the spray that killed me. But Green Door back in the day used to sell terp weed too. They just didn't know it. The terp weed has the bubblegum cookies.
Yeah, hell yeah, dude.
The bubblegum cookies. So it's been around. People have been doing that, and I used to remember like people coming from out of town and saying they're gonna do that same shit. So.
Yeah, Chosen retired off the bubblegum cookies, bro.
I didn't want to say it.
Yeah.
I didn't want to say it.
He killed it with the bubblegum cookies on a whole nother level, and I can appreciate what he did more so than what people are doing now. Like, he had an exclusive product. There was nothing like it.
Yeah.
It wasn't like he was creating 20 product SKUs. He had one thing and it was special.
Yeah, and it was special. And to this day, there are people tell you that it wasn't sprayed. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Right.
But
it definitely was. In my opinion
too. Yeah.
I didn't see it sprayed, but I definitely feel like that was the origin of all this stuff. And if anybody did it right, he did it right.
No, he definitely did it right because nobody knew. And people really were
they were hyped up on it.
And they would bang their hand on the table. They would swear up and down like this was the real one. It's coming from the Green Door.
But there is, in my opinion, there is no actual bubblegum tasting. There's guava and there's other things, but bubblegum is a man-made flavor profile. And so even with like the original Indiana bubblegum and some of these bubblegum crosses where they smell like bubblegum on the plant, it doesn't translate in the flower.
Yeah, I've never had that translation either.
Yeah, and I go through these pheno hunts, so we're popping seeds all the time, and we have stuff that smells like bubblegum. I get all excited, and then we go to smoke it, and it's like big letdown.
Well, that's like the thing about, Runtz and candy it smelled like how it smoked. And that's how you know good candy. A lot of people think they have good candy, but it's like your taste doesn't translate. Your smell doesn't translate all the way through the joint. So it's like
all the way down where it tastes like Runtz or it tastes like Skittles.
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel like you guys had the original, like between Skittles and Runtz, you guys had the original candies that kind of elevated it to what it is now, where you would smoke it all the way down and it tasted amazing. If it was grown correctly, it would taste amazing all the way down to the road.
Remember, Skittles, you could only get greenhouse when it first came out.
Yeah.
Remember they had the little packs? No, remember they had the little packs. You had to buy a pack of joints to smoke Skittles back then. You know what I mean?
That was the best way to smoke it because you didn't want to look at that bud either because it was the worst.
For real. But it was so different then. It was like, once the Skittles genetic really got out, it was over, right? It was just like, because it smokes so good. Like even to this day, if you don't have Skittle in your head stash, you're not smoking right. Like, you know what I mean? You always got to have some Z.
We've got Z times Z right here. So we got Skittles with Z Piatella.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, so I've been working on hash holes with Skittles, right? Because I feel like that's a great product SKU with my partners. And so we were trying to figure out how to do hash holes. And every hash hole I rolled, you weren't getting nice donuts. And so we went back to the drawing board, got rid of the rosin, put Piatella, right? Then you can take nice slugs, put it in there.
Yeah.
I'm putting everyone on game right now. Like literally, this is the way to do Skittles. And dude, we'll smoke this in a minute, and it just smokes like candy on candy. You can put Skittles with anything, and it makes it taste better. Like literally,
Skittles the rosin is the best.
Yeah.
I don't know if it dumps or not, but like
it doesn't. It doesn't at all. It's like some people get 1.5. My buddy's getting about 2.5 on it, and there's stuff that gets 5. There's stuff that gets 6%. You know, so you're not doing it for the yield. You're doing it for the passion, and you know, you can sell it for more, but it doesn't equivalate if you're selling stuff that yields 5%.
Yeah, not at all.
So
not at all. But Skittles rosin by far is the best rosin. Like, you know, if you get a hash hole with GMO and it just dominates the taste of the hash hole, and you're like, man, like, you know,
it's gassy. It's like, it's all right. It's kind of played out though.
It's not a real blend. Like, I love the blends. Even, you know, I like mixing flour. Like Skittles is something that I get and I mix with everything else.
Starburst is pretty good. That Starburst OG, I smoked one with CGO, with Marco from CGO came on the show, and we smoked a hash hole that had that Starburst OG rosin. That's a close contender.
Oh,
like that's a close contender. And same thing with the candy paint and the candy fumes.
Candy fumes is one of my favorites recently.
Really good.
Yeah, but I think all those strains are low yielders, right? So it's like shout out those people that grow that weed to turn it into rosin, because that's some of the best rosin in the world.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like you know, hands down. And that's why they say Skittles wins every competition, because you know, it doesn't get much better than a good batch of Skittles. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Like, you know, people that can grow Skittles consistently, you know, look at Zushi.
Right.
Their whole brand is based off of consistently growing great Skittles.
20 lights. Killing it.
Killing it.
Yeah, killing it on another level with like real small batch, what I consider small batch. You know, you don't see a lot of small. You got people posing as small batch, but there's a handful of people really doing that small batch where they can put the time and energy into each plant. That makes all the difference.
So to ask you this, what's harder, to grow small batch elite or grow big facility weed and at that level?
They're both just as hard. And the thing with the scale is, like, I think craft you can do like not craft, but small you can do on your own. Right?
Yeah.
So if you're talking about small batch, you can really do that with 1 or 2 people. With growing it as
what's considered small batch? I consider it under 20 lights.
Yeah. I would agree. That's what I consider too. Cool. I think that's manageable with one person. Like, I could do 20 lights myself if I wanted to now.
But it's hard though.
It's very hard.
Very hard. 20 lights, let's not get it twisted. If you're growing 20 lights by yourself, it's hard as fuck.
It's hard.
I've tried to grow 16.
I couldn't trim it. I couldn't trim it, but I could definitely grow it. And maybe I'd probably get people to help me set it up and break it down.
You'd be there all day, every day, pretty much.
Yeah. And I mean, if you want good results, right? And you're probably growing with HPS lights too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think HPS, but I also love soil. I'm a big soil guy. I love soil, but I also, you know, for certain applications, Rockwool is great, especially for scale. If you're doing scale and you want that Lamborghini, Rockwool is it's probably the hardest way to grow in a lot of ways, but you can dial it in such a way where you can get a consistent result all the time. And so there's people that are producing that for the masses, and that's all right. There's nothing wrong with that. There's the guys that are doing small batch and craft that are using soil. And I like this Synganic, where it's like, I'm not all about, it doesn't have to be 100% organic for me to love the smoke. I felt like the best Skittles is grown Synganic with soil.
And what's Synganic?
So that's like organic with synthetic. So you're using salts with like soil. You can have organic and salt inputs.
Okay.
And I love that.
Yeah, I think that is the best too. Right. That's from my experience and the growers that I've dealt with. The people who are doing Synganic, they definitely crushing it.
Yeah, where it's like, it checks all the boxes. It's got the look, smell, taste, color, everything. And I think it has a little bit longer of a shelf life with some of that stuff.
HPS Synganic is the GOAT way to go for you.
I think so.
Yeah.
You know, or maybe some of these guys that are doing the checkerboard where they do the LED plus the HPS.
I like
think
that
that's
too.
Good.
I've been, you know, this Rookies was grown like that with mixed light, HPS and LED, small batch, soil grown, Synganic. Now that's a new term. I'm about to start throwing it out there. So that is an elite way of growing. Yeah. But at scale, most people do Rockwell, right?
I think most people, you get cocoa guys at Rockwell, like my cultivation partners with SF Canada, they do a lot of cocoa. And then, you know, like Dave from Preferred Gardens was on. He does both. He does Rockwool. You know, in Florida, they're doing exclusively Rockwool for their production, and they produce good flower. I mean, you can't argue Dave from Preferred and that $60,000 without proper doinks. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, for sure. Dave got some of the best weed in the world.
And his Skittles is some of the best. We smoked it on the show, and we smoked it side by side with the stuff I'm getting, and it's like, I mean,
was it the mixed light?
Mine wasn't mixed light, but his was. I think his was. I'm not sure what light he was using, but he was using cocoa, I believe.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I'm all about that soil for Skittles especially. But Skittles doesn't yield. It's a finicky plant. Each batch is a little different. Like literally, you could harvest it on the same day, and you can have a different effect from them. You can have a different terp profile, and I mean, but that's part of the beauty of it too. Like in being able to capture it.
That's the same thing with candy, with Runtz, right? Yeah. Like, you know, the two of the biggest strains, Runtz and lemon cherry gelato. It's hard to tell them apart, right? And then if you give the same plant to 5 different cultivators, it's going to come out 5 different ways. That's what people don't realize. And that's what birthed a lot of these brands, right? They went to another facility. They're like, hey, this is different than the original Runtz. I'm going to call it cherry grape gelato.
Oh, they're the two most confused strain names. Like literally, I see stuff all the time that's lemon cherry that would be what I would consider lemon cherry that's Runtz. Yeah. And vice versa. There's a lot of stuff out there. You know, it's like they're siblings for sure.
For sure.
You know, and I mean, we don't have to go into the story and all that on the show, but it's like, but yeah, it's like, you know, there's plenty of other people talking all the stuff about it, but it's like, you know, I mean, it's an amazing genetic, whether you call it lemon cherry, whether you call it Runtz, and it's like, that stuff is candy all the way down, and it has amazing flavor. And it's undeniable, and I think it's also mass-produced, right? So the mass-produced stuff may give it a bad name at times.
For sure.
But literally, the stuff that's grown small batch or craft or by really good cultivators is amazing.
It's amazing, for sure.
So yeah, I even have some hash from it today. I did some of the Piatella style hash. It didn't make the real, like, pliable Piatella, but dude, it's crazy hash. It's full-on bubble hash, and it'll get you high as fuck.
Yeah, the bubble hash is like my favorite right now.
Yeah.
The Piatella, man, you know, who created the Piatella? Like,
Frenchie Cannoli kind of has basically lifted
it's
up.
Like 3 years old,
rest
right?
in peace.
Oh, he died?
He died a few years ago now. Mm-hmm. But he's the guy who was doing, like, Piatella is an old way of making hash.
Okay.
Right. And so, but then the modern way with the bubble hash and all these things, I would contribute Frenchie Cannoli's name to the reason we have it like it is today, where it's like that next level. And I don't think enough people are making Piatella with elite strains, but I think it's totally possible. And I mean, I have Skittles Piatella to smoke with you today. It's next level.
Yeah, no, the Piatella, you know, I've only got to enjoy it a few times.
Yeah.
But it's like, man, we're evolving, right? Even rosin, like, to me, it's crazy that, you know, we came such a long way from shatter, man. I remember, you know, it was the first crumble and shatter and shit like that. It's like,
literally.
Man. And I remember killing my lungs doing that shit. Like, you know what I mean? And now it's like we've came so far with the tech, with the low temp, you know.
Low temp terps. They got, you know, they had hourglasses for a while. Now they got fucking actual timers. So it's
like, to me, I love where the game's headed. I hate that we lost that medical aspect, right? No, everyone forgets that. It is medicinal now. Like it is medicine for a lot of people. It's become like a fun thing. And, you know, like the corporate cannabis, they ruined a lot of it, right? Like disty pens and shit like that. But I love how the real insiders are still always, they're refining, you know, how we smoke, you know, how us at the top smoke, or not even at the top, but like how us that care smoke, you know what I mean?
The real passionate people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so with the Piatella, technically Piatella is supposed to be aged, but with what I'm doing with it is basically taking in, putting slugs of the pressed bubble hash, basically with a little bit of heat, the least amount of heat to basically get it to form into like a soft, pliable material that you can basically put in hash holes. But you can also smoke it in, you know, a bowl. You know, I have an old school atom smasher. Before rigs, we used to heat a rod up and then it'd go in a bowl that had 2 holes on the side.
I never smoked that before. I smoked the 2 knives before. Like
the hot knives were the shit. Knives, we talk about that, dude. You want to ruin someone's day? Hot knives were the way.
Bro, I used to get so high off hash as a kid. You know, we didn't have dabs and shit like that. Right. So when you get some hash, it wouldn't smoke in a joint either. You have to, you know, like a snake wouldn't ever smoke in a joint back then.
No, you'd have to like chop it up, and it would burn all fucked up.
Yeah, homogenize it. Yeah, and then like. the hot knives was, I remember going to a friend's house after school.
Yeah.
And he was like, we got some hash. I got some hash. You know, he had got some hash from his older brother or something. And I'm like, how are we going to smoke it?
Steal mom's kitchen knives.
They had the knife on the stove.
Yeah.
Put the knives together. We hit the knife, man, that shit.
Did you guys use a cardboard tube or did you use like the 2-liter Coke or soda and then you cut off that and you put them in there? And oh, dude, you would, I mean, I had one friend, my friend Dominic. I'll always remember this. I've been doing hot knives all the time with my buddy. And he came over to the house and he's like, seeing us smoke. And he's like, I want to do one of those. And we're like, dude, this is super strong. He took one hit from the hot knives and literally couldn't quit coughing, drinking water. His face was red. And fucking next thing you know, he sat down for 1 second. It's like, I got to go. And we were like, damn, dude, took off. Well, our wives came back like 45 minutes later.
Yeah.
And they're like, what is Dominic doing out in the car? And this dude is literally in his car. We go outside and he's got his hands on the steering wheel and we're like, what's up, bro? How you doing? He's like, I really wanted to go, but I couldn't go. I'm like, dude, you need to come back inside. And he's like, I don't think I can get up out of the seat. He ended up coming back inside chilling for a little bit, but like, that's how high you get.
Yeah. You know, I remember, you know, first when the butane dabs came out, right? And you had to heat the nail and put the dome on.
Oh, yeah.
So I remember like smoking with guys that's been smoking for years, right? And one of my friends, he had just got out of jail. And he's like, man, let me try that shit. I'm like, nah, bro. I'm like, you don't want to do this. I'm like, you know, it's you got to ease into it. He's like 1 or 2 days out.
Yeah.
And he sees me do it. He sees how high I am. He's like, nah, I want to try it. So I light him up one. And you know, you got to drop the dab on, then put the dome on.
Oh, yeah.
This guy grabs it from the titanium nail, bro.
Oh, no.
He ends up having to go to the hospital, 3rd-degree burns.
I bet, because we didn't play with those nails back then. The titanium, we'd be like 900 degrees. You know?
Yeah, it should be hot as fuck. Red hot.
You go red hot.
Red hot. He got 3rd-degree burn. Like, whoa, bro. Hey, you know, he ended up taking the dab. he tried to thug it out and not go to the hospital, but he had to go. He got 3rd-degree burn like right on his hand. He
probably has a scar from that to this day.
Yeah, for sure, to this day. For sure, you shake his hand, you'll see the scar.
That's wicked.
Yeah, but that's like you would get so high, like, you know, and that was what we looked for. I feel like as a kid, you look for a high more than you look for taste. You know what I mean?
That's where we started. We started in this place that was all about the effect.
Yeah.
Like cat piss, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Cat piss was, you know, I talk about it on my show all the time. Cat piss in the Bay Area was something special. It smelled like crazy, dude. It was so
crazy
loud.
Bad and tasted crazy bad. But it get you high as shit.
It was like ammonia, but it was just the high. You would go for the high.
Yeah, you go for the high, yeah.
The ones, so there was different cat pisses, but the one I really like, I think, was a sativa leaning, super silver haze cat piss cross. And, you know, there's people that have all these. We had a 14-week long one. My friends used to grow it. And it looked like shreds in the bag. It didn't look pretty. It was ugly weed, but it would get you higher than shit. And it was so strong. Like the smell was strong too. You could walk in the room after we've been smoking and be like, damn, there's fucking cat piss.
You would know. The room would be pissy.
Oh, yeah.
The room would be so pissy. Yeah. And it was like, we used to have some at the hemp center. I remember it was like one of the first weeds I ever smoked with burn.
Yeah.
And it was fucking NL haze.
Yeah.
It was Northern Lights haze, bro. And this shit would get you so high, but it would taste like, you know, the taste was rough. Even Bubba Kush, remember when Bubba Kush first came out? It would get you so high.
It was soapy. It was like a soapy gas.
Oh, man. And then like, you know, like I feel like when GDP came out, that's when we really started smoking for flavor.
Yeah, that's when the connoisseurs started smoking. I mean, there was some stuff like, there was like a orange, we had like Calio and stuff. I remember when I was a kid, there was like some Calios going on that was orangey, tangy, kind of pre-tangy.
Yeah, Calio. Yeah, I remember Calio type of shit. But that wasn't no Bay Area flavor. That was more of like a LA thing.
Right.
I remember going to like C&B reeling them for the first time and they were flexing tangy and we were like, man, we've had this. This is Calio. Right. Like, you know, to us, man, it was different. It was a little brighter, you know, the tangy was at that time. But, you know, it wasn't anything like Bay Area flavor. Like, you know what I mean? And it was like, that's when the cookies first dropped. I remember it's like we're taking cookies down and they're having OG and Tangy. You know, they were proud about Tangy at that time. And it was like, we're like, man, we got some shit up here at that point. You know, it was like when cookies and cherry pie. You know,
there was like good OGs. There was cherry pie. There was cookies.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of stuff. And it was like, there was just so many good varieties in the Bay. And there was so many good small growers that were like real small batch growers, right?
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Some of them just had closets.
Well, I think at that time it'd be like fucking, they said every third house in the Sunset was a grow or some shit.
I believe it
like,
too. It was like, I had so many friends that were growing out there. It was crazy.
For sure. And it was like, and it was like after Bubba, right, was OG. I mean, that was GDP, right? And OG.
Right. There was like the Masters and the Bubbas.
Yep.
And then there was like the OG Sour era, right?
The OG Sour era, exactly.
Right. And that really, I mean, we had Sour in the early 2000s. I remember we had Sour, my buddy Josh Freeman. He was growing in like 2002, maybe even before then. But like I remember getting it early from him and it was so fire.
Yeah.
But and then Sour's changed
even Sour,
too.
the taste of Sour wasn't, you know, it wasn't crazy. Like you'll get some of those batches that were real earthy and you know citrusy. That like those were great, but like most Sour was not hitting. Like
it's not easy to grow either.
It's not easy to grow at all. Yeah. That's why I'd be interested in people like, you know, most of these facilities are on that strict 8-week schedule. It's like, you know, I want to see some Sour, but that's why we don't like that. Right. I know why Sour is not here is because it took so long.
No one wants to go 11 weeks, dude. No. Nobody wants to go 11 weeks.
And no one wants to trim no fucking Sour either.
Yeah, and it literally has to be hand trimmed by somebody who's not going to shave it.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's got these fingers, these foxtails. You have to get in there.
Yeah.
And it looks like shit in the bag. So, and you can't really sell it for bag appeal. It's just not one of those ones. But people will buy the shit out of it on the East Coast.
Oh yeah, for sure.
They've always bought the shit out of it. They love that.
It's
a New York thing.
The thing that ended Sour in New York was Runtz, though.
Yeah.
The New York never was really too keen on Cookie or, you know, any other exotic.
They went through their Piff phase, you know what I mean? I think they're still going through like that Piff and Cuban Black, you know?
Yeah, I think they always like those sativa dominant strains, right? But like the thing that really took over New York was Candy.
Yeah.
I remember going up to Dykeman like in 2017 when Runtz first dropped. And, you know, just being in California and not really moving around like that, you know New York, and I would always go to New York. I've been going to New York since I was like 16. You would always know New York as a sour town, right? And I remember we went out there in 2017 and we were in Dykeman going to the Rucker Park, you know, to watch a basketball game. And the guys on the street were being like, got Runtz, got Sour. And I was like shocked. I remember being like, man, I was like, damn, they're selling Runtz now in New York? Like, that's crazy. You know, just knowing like how big New York was on Sour for so many years. Yeah. I was like, damn, I was like, you know, in my eyes, that was like when I was like, damn, we really got some. Like they really smoking.
And that was the origins of the bags, right? When people first started branded bags.
Yeah.
Like 2017 is kind of when with Runtz.
Yeah.
You know, I think there was Gushers and Runtz and a handful of other brands that like it meant something to be in a branded bag.
Oh yeah, for sure. Back then. Yeah, it was like, I would say COVID is when everyone had a bag. You know, everyone turned into, they had a bag. And it was, you know, everyone had a bag and a brand.
There was shitty stuff in bags, good stuff. You couldn't tell the quality by the bag.
Yeah, and that's what fucked me up about Runtz, right? It was because I knew how many packs we had and how many bags we had. So it'd be like, I would see this shit all over and I'd be like, man, that shit's fucked up. They, you know, they're bootlegging it. And, you know, LB used to regulate that shit at that time. My partner, he used to get upset and I'd be like, bro, there's nothing we could do at this point. You know what I mean? It's just be like, what we got is real. You know what I mean? And that's what's crazy about it. Cause I remember even in 2018 going to London and going to a smoke shop in London and they had fake Runtz bags in there.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, you know, knowing the whole time we ever had Runtz, we only had maybe 100 pounds worth of bags, you know, in that beginning, you know, in them 2 years.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Cause we only had so much weed. We were still coming from a small batch farm, you know what I mean? So that's what was crazy about it. Everyone turned into a bootlegger too. And it's like, man, like, you know.
Oh yeah. It ruined the weed.
Yeah, it ruined it. Oh yeah, for sure.
It went from being a good thing to a bad thing real quick.
Yeah. And then with the fucking legalization too, it just turned into like, you know, it's like everyone's like, oh, just give your genetics up and, you know, they're going to grow it. And it's just like, you're just going to, you know, and it's like the advice I was getting at the time was like, man, let that happen. You know what I mean? Right. Like it's going to be fine. Like everyone could grow weed. And we're just like, no, bro, everybody can't grow weed. You know, some of the biggest companies fucked up their whole operations by saying everybody could grow. You know what I mean? And not putting trust in people that were risking their lives for this shit. You know what I mean? Right. A lot, they're like, oh yeah, let's go corporate. Let's do this, and that. Oh, we'll hire Joe Schmo who got a hedge fund. His son can grow the weed. You know,
we'll find some tomato guards.
Fuck, man. And that was the whole part of the game that fucked me up. That was like, what are we doing? Right. Like, what are we doing? And it's like, you know, the deal that I did, I was kind of handcuffed from even fucking having a voice. You know what I mean? So it was like, you know, luckily we were able to get out of it and be in a position to now fuck with people like Dave and right. You know, and like Angel City and you know, people that are actually growing fire, who want to grow fire, who
respect the plant.
Yeah,
they respect the consumer. It's
they respect the genetics. They're not trying to whore it out. They're not trying, you know, and that's what's great about California and the community that we do have that is in touch. You know what I mean? That you know, it's great. I could call Doja on a day-to-day. You know what I mean? I could call anybody and reach out to anybody. Everybody shows love. You know, the small batch guys from everybody. You know what I mean? People that are really passionate about the plant. We find each other. You know what I mean? Just like this, how Hush put this together. It's like we find each other and we're gonna talk about shit that really matters. And we're gonna come up with Piatella. And we're gonna come up with rosin, and we're gonna make these moves, and we're gonna find
take it to that next level.
Yeah, we're gonna take it to that next level. And we're gonna find these flavors that people are gonna smoke for the next 100 years, you know? And that's what's cool about it. And it's like, you know, from fucking Humboldt and up, and then you go from LA and down, man, everyone's growing fire now. You know, everyone's in a position where it's like, we know what we need to do. Right. The guys that's, you know, the legacy guys, they all know what they need to do. Like,
right. And it's inclusive, but it's exclusive, right? So it's the beauty of California is like we're giving each other high fives. Everybody at the top, like literally is out there fucking celebrating, giving each other high fives. I think in other states, it's a little bit different vibe, a little bit different energy. Yeah. But Cali boys, everybody loves each other.
Yeah. And that's why we gotta, you know, we got to come together and bring that, you know, California shit to the other states.
Right.
You know what
other
I mean?
Countries, other states, get it all out there.
Exactly. You know, like I remember talking to Ryan about, you know, okay. You know, the legacy guys who haven't sold out, man, who really have kept it, you know, risk their lives for this shit. Yeah. Man, they deserve it. You know what I mean? And that's why I love that, like, you know, you could reach out and people are going to give you game. People are going to show love. And, you know, that's what we got to keep doing is, you know, it sucks that it is so corporate and it did go to shit. You know what I mean? Right. You know, I would admit it, the game went to shit. Yeah. The whole game went to shit.
Real quick.
Real quick. That COVID shit fucked the whole game up.
Well, and the thing is like when COVID hit, everybody was crushing. If you weren't making money in the cannabis industry during COVID, like you're not ever going to be able to make money.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? And so everybody started expanding and grew too big and they thought it was never going to end. And then all of a sudden, boom, it burst. The bubble burst. We've seen it happen throughout, you know, history in even other industries where it seems too good to be true and then it is. Right? It is, and then all of a sudden we're left with all these big corporations growing cannabis and really just trying to put out as much product as they can, sell it as cheap as they can, create it as cheap as they can, and going off of this small list of genetics that is what people want on the markets that they're getting information from the dispensaries.
Oh yeah, I know some MSOs that I visited their facilities before. They grow the same genetics on the same recipe nationwide.
Oh yeah.
Nationwide.
McDonald's.
Yeah, McDonald's.
And it's McDonald's weed.
And it's like, no, we're going to do a deal with some people in Denver. I didn't know you have to put the weed in the microwave in Denver. Like they remediate the weed and like, you know, it comes out different. Like they showed me the process. I'm like, I don't want to do this with my weed. It's like, you know, they start letting corporations in and then shit like that. They're going to limit the level of THC you could have on a plant, you know, limit the level of terpenes. It's going to turn into some shit that's not medicine. And that's what I keep going back to. It's like, that's what sucks, right? It's like, man, I wish there was a way for it to go back to be medical, but it's like, you know, it's going to be us you know, the people from California who really was here, who's really doing this, that's going to have to carry that torch of this being medical, this being a plant that needs, you know, that needs proper cultivation. This is something that needs to stay independent for as long as it can. You know what I mean?
Right. And it's its own thing. Like there's nothing quite like cannabis out there, agriculturally, business-wise, nothing that it really brings people together exactly the same on that same level. That's pretty good, right? Yeah. And that's cutting right through that hemp wrap. That's a Giancarlo.
That's what I was going to say. It's like, usually I can't take shit over the hemp wrap, but
totally. Like that's the one. So that's the Dirt Skittles. That's the one that we're rocking. Hush is rocking it. It's the one, dude. Like it's Skittles. It's the real cut, grown properly. Yeah, it's exciting. There's no hash in there, but it got that hash, that mouth coat.
Just that Z times Z. Yeah, it's mouth coat.
No, that's just Z. That's just the flower. Okay. Yeah, we got the hash hole right here. I took a deep dive into learning how to roll. We did a rosin deep dive this year where I learned how to make rosin. I made bubble hash.
I want to go on that journey now. So like, I'm excited about this new venture that I'm taking this because, you know, being hands-on, right? You know, being more hands-on with the plant, learning how to really cultivate. You know, I want to go in there and really know what's going on now. And I'm looking at it like it's college now, right? Like this is what I've been doing my whole life, right? Like I believe, you know, I want to do there's shit that like I feel like it's like a rite of passage, right?
Yeah.
If you can't open up 5 different bags and you don't know what strain they are, you shouldn't be selling weed.
Right.
Right? You shouldn't.
If you can't tell them apart.
If you can't tell them apart, I'm not talking about this candy shit where everybody, you know, maybe putting a name on something, but I'm like, you know, original strains. If you don't smell this and you're not like, hey, this is tangy.
If you don't know what RS11 and Zope or the difference between the two, it's like, it's just one of those staples. Like it's out there.
Exactly.
You know?
Like maybe you shouldn't be selling weed, right? And that was what, you know, COVID brought was a bunch of, you know, people who are doing it for money or, you know, and them was like corporate hustlers almost, you know what I mean? Where it's like, it's going to phase out. And that's what's happening right now. It's like, I look at it like a great realignment, you know what I mean? Where it's a time that if you have those relationships and if you know where the game is really headed, you can make a great move. You know, you can rebuild and come up with new genetics and have a new menu and show everybody like, you know, this is what we've been doing, right?
Right.
So that's really what the approach that I'm taking with this relaunch of Runtz is like we're coming with real genetics from real people that you know what I mean? Like so
totally.
Yeah. So I'm excited about where the game's headed, to be honest. Like I think
I am too.
Yeah.
100% excited. And the thing is like I know based on if you look at throughout history and all the people, like there's this consolidation that goes on when people find new industries and new industries come online, whether it's the .com industry, you know, where all these computer companies, they consolidated and then the bubble burst and there was problems, right? But the ones that held out, they were successful. And I know that if you're strong enough and you believe in yourself and you have a good product, you're going to be successful and you're going to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it's just, you got to hold out. And times are tough right now. Times are tough for a lot of people. They're tough on the streets.
Across the board.
They're tough for everybody, right?
Everybody, yeah.
But there is light at the end of the tunnel. And I think if you can maintain good quality genetics, you're going to be successful, right? And I think it's all really coming down to genetics. And I think that was overlooked by so many people. They're like, I'll just grow good weed. It's like, no, you need your own thing that separates you from everybody else. Yeah. Whether it's like you with Runtz or me with my different genetics. And I'm really pushing, we have chocolate Runtz, right? So that's Chocolope, DNA's Chocolope. We do that times the Runtz, and that's pretty special. And I can't wait to show it to you in a couple weeks. But I feel like that's one of those disruptors, right? We got the ZDP. That's a disruptor.
Yeah, for sure.
It's GDP, but it leans on that Skittles and it's candy. We got a sour diesel that's like friggin' exactly what you'd think it is. It's got that the really good sour expression with the Skittles. I feel like it's got somewhere in the middle, and it's something that represents both of the plants properly. And so it's all about trying to. I feel like this is chess, and you're trying to play 5 moves ahead, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that's that people who haven't been playing, that genetic game might get left behind, right. So that's why we did global genetics is another reason. We've been stacking these genetics up since like 2017, where I realized it's like, man, what happened to granddaddy? Like that's what I was thinking back then. I'm like, man, we need to start keeping track of these genetics. So
now with tissue culture, we can save stuff.
Yeah, yeah. But even then, like we with Brandon and my partner from Global Genetics, we've saved stuff with JB, so we did a lot of that stuff that ended up getting put out under Doja's name. We did a lot of that stuff, and then we got the nursery in Long Beach.
Right.
So it's like playing that genetic game, and then you have to play the right cultivators, right? Not a lot of people want to deviate from their 8-week. I got to do Athena, I got to do this and that. Not a lot of people want to deviate from that. So. Finding the right cultivators, I think, to grow these genetics is really important too.
Yeah, because they have to learn how to grow them. Different cultivars grow differently, and you can't treat one like the next and just put it in a cookie cutter program. You got to learn how to grow each plant. They need to be basically cleaned out differently. There's so many little details. Do you top it? Do you not top it? And there's these things. Really good cultivators, they learn how to grow that specific genetic, and it's usually not the first time, the second time, the third time they're really starting to knock it out of the park.
Yeah.
And then they get it and they either love it or they don't.
And that's that's about having the right partners too. You got to go through those growing pains for the genetic, right? And if you do, like you said, if you do put something on we're doing everything the same, then I believe, you know, you already set yourself up for failure. You're not in tune with the plant as how much you need to be.
Right. The market or the plant.
The market or the plant. Yeah, for sure. For sure. And that's like, you know, little adjustments that I feel like that I can help make.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's really what I'm doing, is getting back in there and being like, you know, we need to be in tune with the plant on an everyday basis, where it's like we're touching, we're feeling, we're smelling, we're taking advantage of the relationship and the time we're spending here. So, you know, and that's really what I think it comes down to.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's like, you know, and the thing is, it's so competitive that if you're not on that level, it's really difficult to compete. Yeah. Right? Because how do you make money on a $600 pound? You don't. Most people produce it for $600, right? And so you're seeing stuff, the middle grade stuff is $600 a pound now. You know, and it's like, how do you make money? How do you survive? You don't. You don't.
Well, what do you think? You know, what do you think those big facilities pay? If you got 2,000 lights,
so if you have 2,000 double tier, like you're like double stacked, and you're getting like 3 to 4 pounds, you know, a light, you're probably only paying like $250 to $300, and then there's trimming, but they're using trimming machines, right? And so there's all these little shortcuts that take away from the end product. Yeah, and they can produce it, and maybe they can produce it for 3 and sell it for 6 or sell it for 7. And then there's the guys that are greenhouse that are producing it, and it only costs them 150 or less. Yeah, it's wild, and it's wild, and it's really it's hard to compete. It's like same thing with the guys that are doing indoor rosin, to compete indoor rosin versus the guys that are doing outdoor rosin. Man, the trichomes are both trichomes, right? Indoor, outdoor. Yeah. And there's guys that are doing really good outdoor, but I like indoor rosin. Yeah. You know, I think there's good outdoor rosin too, but man, I have a lot of respect for the guys that do indoor.
And that's why you see the price tanking, right? Yeah. Like because there's those facilities where people can afford to pay that much. Right. You end up with the consumer that loses, and it's not a consumer that's on our level though. It's the consumer that's, you know, not an everyday smoker going into a dispensary, picking up some bullshit. So it's like, you know, that's what's important to me too, to even launch on the rec market. Is like, you know, I want something that where everyday consumers gonna be like, wow, man, this is the best weed I've ever smoked. Right.
You know, and like following suit with guys like Dave from Preferred Gardens, I see what he's doing, and it's like he has a appropriately priced product that's quality. And so many, I mean, I think the other struggle is on the market, like you could have the best brand, but if that sits on the shelf for 6 months, you're fucked. The product sucks. Yeah. And I know guys try to do buybacks, but you can't do that everywhere. And that's one thing we really need to change, is how do we get the consumer faster with controlled environments to where the product is as like the product we like to smoke.
Yeah, I think we might have to start dating shit or something like that.
They're dating stuff now, but it's like they're still like just keeping it on the shelves. And I think a lot of consumers aren't educated enough to look and see, you know, it's like, you know, especially with some of these bigger brands, even the ones that are grown in really good facilities, if it's not in a controlled environment, the weed's going to suck.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. Storing and drying is where a lot of people mess up the weed.
Right. When it's different on the streets, that stuff gets consumed a lot faster. You're not on the streets, you know, like especially the top level, like the AAAs, man, those get smoked and consumed right away. They're getting grown, they're going out. And so that stuff has a different level where it goes through, you know, the chain of custody goes through and it gets consumed right away. A lot of times with dispensary stuff may sit on the shelves. It's not like they do a drop where it's like, okay, on this day we're going to, I mean, some people do, but for the most part, people aren't like, okay, we're going to drop it on this day and then it's going to sell out in 2 days or 3 days. They'll put it on the shelf and hopefully it sells, and maybe they got a lot of product SKUs and some sell faster than others, but it's really hard to control the quality in rec.
It's super hard. And that's why, you know, I think the best weed is fresh weed. Not, you know, not too fresh. It's a crazy,
it's a balance. Skittles is fresh and it's good. Like the Skittles, the fresher the better.
The fresher the better, yeah.
But I feel like, you know, we talk about Runtz, and Runtz, you give it a good 2-week cure on it in some terp blocks. Dude, it smokes better, it's smoother, you know, and I feel like even the effect is, for whatever reason, I almost feel like the effect after 2 weeks is a little bit different. Yeah.
Yeah, no, candy is better when it's rested. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what sucks. A lot of these facilities that grow good weed rush the drying process and in the process ruin the weed.
When there's so many little mistakes you can make to ruin the weed, it's not as easy as people would like to think. you can pack your dry rooms too full and it takes longer to dry. You get botrytis. There's so much botrytis on flower these days. I see.
What's botrytis?
Botrytis is like the gray mold, like the gray ghost. If you snap the bud and you get that like with the black.
If you squeeze it, right?
If you squeeze it
or snap
if you scrap, it's like gray mold, right?
Yeah.
So botrytis is like, they call it noble rot in wine, but it's like, even on the outdoor where sometimes you'd have the gray and it'd be all gray, it's just small amounts of it. And you can get that if your air systems have it in it. And so like people, and then fixing your air systems, replacing all that gets super expensive. So, but yeah, and there's all these little things you can do to dial in your stuff. But you have to consider every little step. It's like, okay, when I'm drying, it's just as important as when I'm growing, or more important to hit it.
You think it's more important?
I think drying is just as important as how you grow it.
I used to know this guy who would cure some OG. This is back in the 215 days. And, you know, this is when LA had all the dispensaries, right? And you would just, you know, if you're being from the Bay, you just pick a dispensary and you go pick him. And, you know, this guy would just give the craziest name. Every time I just bring him OG and he'd just give it a crazy name. And he would fucking cure the weed. I would leave the weed with him. He would burp it daily. He had some process. He wouldn't show us the process.
Right.
But he would show us the same weed in like 60 days or something like that, cured crazy. And he would test it and he'd be like, it tests 10% higher. Like, I don't know if it was true, if he was really testing it or what he was doing, but
maybe it did get you more high. I mean, who knows if people were testing it.
No, it definitely did. It would cure perfectly. Like, I don't know what his process was, but like, you know, that's what made me really realize that like, you can make the weed better. And he was like, that's the same weed, fool. Like, he would always tell me, like, that's the same weed. Like,
probably put it in the freezer, bro.
Yeah, I don't know how he did
cured it. He dried it perfectly and then put it in the freezer, and then the last bit of moisture wicks out of it. Yeah, some people did that. Right?
Oh, no, that's how I used to store my partners for Fire Society. You know, when we used to have a bunch of weed, he put it in the freezer. And at first, he'd be like, when you take it out, he's like, don't touch it for 10 minutes.
Yeah,
like,
you don't want to fuck with it.
Yeah, don't fuck with it.
But we've won cups off of frozen weed before. Like,
bro,
literally,
that's crazy. Yeah, no, I've had some
year-and-a-half old frozen weed, by the way.
Yeah, some of the best batches that I've had, you know, of ether back in the day and shit like that, we would freeze because, you know, we'd have too much. We would just put it out, you know, in batches. And yeah, that's what's crazy. Yeah, the ether shit's crazy too because, you know, for Olympics, we were almost going to put a candy in.
Yeah.
And me and EK and, you know, Brandon and Tony from Angel City, we're sitting down and we're going through everything that he had just grown.
Yeah.
And there was a S1. They had a bunch of new shit, right? That were candy crosses and they were all good. And we smoked them all. And then he was like, you want to see this ether that we had gave him? We got it back from Tissue Culture. So, you know, Brandon had did it from Global Genetics. So we had given it to Angel City exclusively. Yeah. So we smoked the ether. And you know how it is when you smoke all day, right? We're like 7-8 blunts in. Right. You know,
you're already high as fuck.
We're already high as fuck. Taxed. Yeah, and we're like, you know, it's all candies and Z's basically. You know what I mean? Zopes and Skittles and, you know, all that type of shit. So we smoked, you know, 8 joints. They're all elite, white ass, you know, ring, all that shit. EK had gave me a bud, and we're tired now. He gave me a bud for the ride home. And I remember I rolled it up, we smoked it. I called him halfway through. I'm like, man, we should enter this. Cause I was like re-energized. You know, the music sounded good. I started dancing. I'm like, like this shit. I'm talking to my boy who's driving. He's like, yeah, he's like, that shit's smoking. And I'm like, you know, I called him like 3/4 of the way in. And I'm like, I call EK and I'm like, bro, we should put that ether in. We should enter that ether into the Olympics. Yeah. And then he's like, that's crazy. I just talked to Tony and he was like, you know, from Angel City. And he was like, I told him the same thing. He's like, I think we should enter that ether in because it just cut through everything. I'm sure that's what the judges thought too. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Yeah.
That's what especially when they have to taste back to back to back and you're smoking all these different entries. Yeah. You want the ones that stand out, right?
And I think a lot of them were, you know, the boxes that I peeped, a lot of them were candies and Z's, you know what I mean? I don't know what ended up winning.
I don't remember either. We'll put it on the screen though.
Yeah.
We'll put it up on the screen. Yeah. But yeah,
I think it was a Z though. I think it was a Z cross.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it was a Z cross. I you know, and shout out whoever won. That, you know, that was dope. But like for me, EK was like, we were talking about it later, and it's like, it's crazy because everyone probably had that same feeling as us. They're smoking all these Z's and candies, and then you know that ether hit them, and they're probably like, oh shit, like, you know,
dude.
Yeah, so you know, I'm excited about that too. You know, Angel City has a bunch of our shit that he's doing right now.
Right.
You know, we're excited about that to drop in May. Shout out EK, you know, and nice. Tony from Angel City and the whole team over there. They're holding it down.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, and shout out Brandon, you know, from Global Genetics. But yeah, we've been quietly, you know, getting our shit to some of the best growers, and you know that's what excited to see is like
what the good grower can do with it.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like you never know its full potential until you get it to someone that you trust to be like, oh, I want to smoke their weed. You know what I mean?
And that's my biggest bitch about people that pheno hunt. If you don't know how to grow good, what the fuck are you doing pheno hunting? Learn how to grow good. Yeah. The thing is like if you can't get the plant to express, dude, like how do you tell one pheno to the next? And it's like I think a lot of people miss that part and they want to jump into breeding right away. And it's like, dude, pheno hunting is so important, but you really have to know how to grow good to make the plant express.
Yeah, and that's why everyone can't pheno hunt either. It's like it's like, you know, and it goes back to like getting bullshit seeds because a lot of these, you know, a lot of these guys that are breeding for seeds, have you ever seen their flower?
Right.
Like
I've seen breeders that work with other people and then they come out with their own flower and it's trash.
Yeah, no, right? I've seen that more than ever, literally, bro. Dude, and it's like, and it goes back to I've never seen any of their flower. Like if they like, and they're
producing seeds, right? And like the real magic is pheno hunting, and it's like, so it's like we got guys. I got like guys like Freddie Big, right?
Yeah.
So when we have pheno hunts, he goes through stuff, and he's got a fucking palate. Like that guy has one of the best palates. Like I put trust in his palate for sure.
For years. You know,
I can't wait to show him all the new stuff.
Yeah,
too.
for
it's
sure.
like,
that's someone that you would go show back to that you're proud of. Like, you know what I mean? So
when he's honest about stuff too, it's like it's one thing if you're just like, oh, everything's good. And then it's like the guys that you really have to, you know, Hush is another one, right? Hush is the other one. He is the QC fucking master. He's that dude who like, I'm like, oh yeah, this is the one. He goes through, he's like, nah, there's a little bit of this. It's just not going to work.
Yeah.
Because if you look in his jars, every bud is perfect. He doesn't put anything in there that's not like, you know, because it's like there's so much hate online too. Like if you put one nug in there that's wrong, people are going to call you out. Like literally, it's going to be that one dude, and he's going to call you out online.
Facts. No, that the level of QC that you have to go to now is crazy, and it's like, you know, if you see brands that are out there that's not going to that level, it's not going to last.
No, it's not. Unfortunately.
This one got hash in it?
Yeah, that one's the Piatella.
This one got the Piatella.
Yeah, how is it?
Yeah, I could smell it. I think I'm getting there right now.
Yeah. You're getting right into it. I could smell it too. So I just learned how to roll hash holes. I've been working on hash holes for a couple of months, and then I think they've gotten better. You know, I feel like
hand rolled this?
I hand rolled that. Yeah, I'm into learning the things. You know, I feel like I always rolled joints. Yeah, I've rolled good joints for a long time, but then the hash holes is like, even my joint game, we stepped it up. You know, I had Marco from CGO just on the show. He helped me step up my game a little bit. Hush Hawaii, he came in, he actually flew out and we did like a 3-day where we went in depth on, okay, how do you roll it? Like trying to fix the way I'm doing things. Like I'm always learning. I'm always willing to learn too. I don't think I'm a master of any of this stuff. I just want to learn how to be better at each thing that I do.
So what do you think about glass tips? Or like the rec tips? And
I like the organic tips right now. I did glass tips for a long time. Dude, these glass tips were just fine. This were great with the hemp wrap because the flower is so good, right?
Yeah.
Like, if the flower is good, it'll cut through almost anything.
Yeah,
but as far as like, I like organic tips. They're kind of the staple. I use the pink Blazy Susans.
Yeah.
And I like this combo. It's cool. But this has a unique smell and taste.
It does. That what kind of flowers in there?
Z times the Z. We call it Zkittlez.
Zkittlez.
I think that it's marketable. It's a marketable name. Shout out to the Z guys. I mean,
so who are the Z guys?
Oh God,
I'm just playing.
This is the best. Yeah, the best reel on the episode. The secret behind Z. The origins of Z and the origins of cookies. We're going down the rabbit hole.
Oh shit!
And I you know, it's funny because to me it doesn't even matter. I wasn't there, so like, I'm over the fact of all these origin stories. It doesn't matter, dude. Like for me, I'm you know, the guys that are doing it. Big shout out to them. You know, I mean, the first person that I smoked, 2014, Brandon smoked me out with Skittles at the High Times Cannabis Cup, and literally I was like, what the fuck is that? It tastes just like Skittles.
See, I think I was probably 20, 2012 or something with Fields up up in Humboldt. And so I got a different story.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny because like it wasn't really popular until 2014, and then it kind of just
it was always popular in the UK.
Oh, really? They just moved it all over there.
UK been smoking Z. You know, shout out the UK.
Yeah, they love it still. You know,
love it still.
I was at Cannabis, and that's all the guys from UK talk about.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know?
That's all they want. You know, and that the UK been trend setting in that way. They've been they were talking about white ash before people knew about white ash in the UK. You know, so the UK been smoking. Everybody that said the UK not smoking, they don't know nothing.
What's your thought on white ash?
I think it definitely has to be at least gray. Black ash, there's no good black ash.
There's no good black ash. No. I agree 100%.
A lot of the small batch stuff is gray.
Yeah, it has speckled. I mean, NorCal Nemo's stuff, which I think that's like the top fetching stuff that for small.
Yeah.
And even some of that doesn't burn completely white all the time. And it's amazing. And I see a lot of good, amazing stuff that doesn't. And although I do think that like white ash is a quality indicator for sure. I don't think it's the only.
I think quality of ash in general, right? Yeah. Heavy ash that stays on the joint.
Yeah.
I think that's important. You know, quality of ash will tell you a lot about the weed, right?
Like, you got to know how to roll it too. I think that's the other thing. A lot of people are like, well, my stuff, it's like, you got to learn how to roll it. You got to use the right grind.
Yeah.
And then pack it in properly.
That's important, right? The right grind and knowing how to roll it. If you don't.
And then oil ring, that's strain specific too. Like it's like one of those.
I think that's roll specific as well. I know some guys that get fucking oil ring on anything they roll. Yeah. So it's like, the oil ring, it's hard to tell, right? A lot of people are lame as smokers. Like some people don't know good weed. I think some people, and they never will, and it's not important to them to know the difference. You know, some people don't know if their flower's too well done or if it's done too early. You know what I mean? So, yeah, and that's the crazy part about it, right? The best growers sometimes it misses, and that's what's important about QC is knowing about. Is this batch appropriate for release? You know what I mean? And shout out the guys that are doing it on a huge level. You know what I mean? That are putting that work in. You know what I mean? I think for a long time, it was so the COVID shit, and then having so many people in the game that wasn't really from the game. That was like a cheat code to allow a lot of people in that didn't do nothing to be here.
Right. Totally. We got a little hole in the middle. So the donut done right.
Oh, the ash drop?
It was about to, and I felt like I just might as well ash it. He probably could have gone on for another like half an inch.
Okay, see, I'm one of them guys. I'm gonna let it go.
You're gonna see how far you can go, like running the tank out of gas.
I was getting ready to take a picture.
It was literally that fucking. It was there.
Yeah, it was almost there for sure.
Yeah, but no, it might have even gone longer. You never know. I've seen them go down practically to the bottom.
Yeah.
What's the industry going to be looking like in 10 years?
So is it going to go federally legal or no?
I'm hoping. I think in the next 5 years, I would say 4 to 5 years is going to be federally legal. They have to do it. It's so silly. Well, and the thing is if you look at Mexico is going to be legal, Canada is going to be legal. With Germany going online, we have all these other countries that are going to go wreck.
Yeah, shout out Germany too. That shit's crazy.
Yeah, I'll be there in June. We got.
Is that Mary Jane in June?
Mary Jane in Berlin.
Yeah, I'm gonna be there too.
Oh yeah, dude. I'm definitely gonna do a dinner party out there. It's amazing. I love Europe. I love Spain. Barcelona is my town.
Yeah,
been going there for
Barcelona might be one of the best places I've ever been.
Like, food wise, social clubs, like the whole experience.
The whole experience of Barcelona is.
Yeah, it's like. It's a dream, and every time I go there, I feel like.
And that's what sucks. Cannabis isn't really beach season. I've never knew about Cannabis till about like maybe I don't know 2017, 20something like something like that. But like you go in the summertime and you go to them clubs till 6 in the morning, and everyone's on the beach at 7, 8, 9, 10. All day. Yeah. Like Barcelona is crazy.
You can go get a massage on the beach too.
Yeah,
you can get your beer or your cocktail.
Yep.
And then get a massage on the beach out there, and it's like their beaches are amazing. I love everything about Barcelona. It's like pretty much everything other than all the checkpoints that drives me crazy. Like you can't drive. Like so, I just have to take a cab around because I always have weed on my breath.
Yeah. I don't drive.
Yeah.
I hate driving when you're like doing something like that throws you off.
Right. Everyone speaks Spanish and it's a whole and you got to be on your toes.
Yeah, exactly. Fuck that. I like to just chill, be relaxed. Like, I couldn't imagine driving to Barcelona.
No, everything's pretty accessible though too. Like all the stuff I like for the most part. Yeah. I mean, there's a couple places I like to go that it's either a really expensive cab ride or you got to rent a car.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Barcelona, the food scene's insane.
Yeah,
the flour's got so good out there. The rosin has gotten so good out there. It's just as good as here if you know the right people.
Yeah. Yeah. The scene is fire. That Barcelona, Ibiza, like that area is crazy. Like
yeah.
Yeah.
Amsterdam, you like Amsterdam?
It was cool.
Yeah.
Like the first time, like I don't think now I like it as much. I don't know how it's got, but just from like the flower standpoint, like I would probably take weed with me there. Like
I used to only take weed with me because I was so worried about getting good stuff. But now I know the right people, and I know if I had to, I could get good stuff. I have a nice core group of friends out there that I've been friends with for a long time. And so it's like, I go visit my buddy Soma, and I go visit a bunch of friends.
Are they growing Runtz and candy out there now?
There's Runtz and candy out there for sure.
Amsterdam grown?
Maybe not. But there is definitely good Runtz out there. There's definitely good candies. There's definitely good Skittles. And there is some really good local stuff, and they are growing in Amsterdam, like outside the city. There are licenses.
No, I know.
And so they're trying to grow good stuff. I haven't seen the flower from that yet. But yeah, I mean, that's real rec weed grown in Amsterdam, and I like that concept. I think that's cool. It's weird how it's so gray area over there. Like we're still in this weird world, like this, where it's like, okay, it's not legal, but the coffee shops can sell it. But if you get caught with more than 5 grams, you're in big trouble. Not big trouble, but like you're in trouble. And like they want to bust all these guys, and and then they cut down on the coffee shops. Like there used to be so many coffee shops in Amsterdam. Yeah, there's like not even 20% of what it originally had. They cut the red light district down, and they cut all the coffee shops down. Shout out Greenhouse. Those are my boys out there, and they kill it. I've been friends with them for a long time. I get like the royal treatment out there.
Yeah, I've never been like, since Runtz. Nah, I've never been. I went like, like when I was younger. Like,
yeah, they got cookies. Burner is a Strain Hunters Cookies Club.
Oh, for real?
So they converted one of those into, so, Burn's got a spot out there with them.
Where, in Amsterdam?
In Amsterdam, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and it's got good food. That spot has the best food out of all the coffee shops. That place has great food and fucking good flour, good stuff. I mean, it's like where all the celebrities go when they go to Amsterdam is like, that's the one spot.
Yeah, I think Amsterdam, it's lost some since everything went legal,
For sure. I mean, a lot of these things. Thailand has lost some, and it just went legal. Like it seems like it was yesterday. It's been a few years where they basically decriminalized it, had shops. They really legalized it, right? And then it got so saturated, right? And now they're changing the laws, even though they're not gonna. They're just changing them. They're not completely getting rid of it or anything like that. But yeah, Thailand was like the hype place to be for a hot second. And now Germany is like the place we're all looking at Germany. It's like, and everybody who's got like either genetics that they can import or flour that they can legally import is like in Germany. It's like they only allow so much import. That's the one thing is like they're going to want to produce a lot of it there, and they are going to import some, but like there's way more product being produced in the world than can be imported and consumed in Germany.
Like there's more product
it's just like California
outside of the United States?
Outside of the United States, just produced, whether it's produced in Portugal, South Africa, Colombia, Canada, all these countries that can legally export. There's way more produced than they can consume there, but everybody's eyeing that one place. And it's so competitive with this stuff on the world market where they're like, okay, well, we can import it. And then in Germany, the laws are crazy. So basically the EU, their certification, and especially Germany, their GMP certification for good manufacturing product, GMP, whatever it stands for, good manufacturing processes, or whatever.
Yeah.
Basically with the GMP.
I never knew what it stood for. So, I just knew what it was.
Yeah, German GMP is the highest level of high levels. And so it's going to be really interesting, how much product is going to actually get imported. They're going to want to grow a lot there. But I think that's another opportunity to bring brands in, right? So like all the guys with brands are kind of eyeing there and like, how do I get my brand in Germany?
Oh no, we ended up, I did some shit with Barongo from out there. So nice. So we're going to have some product out there pretty soon, I think. Hopefully this month, I think we launch.
Nice.
So we were able to, you know, get some genetics to Canada early through global genetics. So we're definitely, you know, we're excited about Germany as well.
Yeah, I am too. And I like Germany as a country. I think I've been there, you know, I've been to Oktoberfest in Germany, and I think I haven't been there since it's been legal, but I'm excited for the legalization out there. I think they're super passionate people in general.
Well, I think it's medical right now. Like, you know, that's how it is, but.
Well, no, they went full rec.
Oh, they went full rec?
Now they're officially full recreational. And Mary Jane, they can house up to 100,000 people, and I believe they're already anticipating more than 50,000. Last I heard.
Oh wow!
And so that's going to be double what Cannabis is.
Oh, for real?
And so that should be wild. And if the venue, we just got our booth layout that we're going to be with Grove, and then we're doing a little bit of stuff with Strain Hunters selling seeds at the Greenhouse Strain Hunters booth, and I'm going to be doing live podcast there. We'll have to get you on a podcast out there.
Yeah, let's do it. So, you're going to do a live podcast out there?
And we're going to be doing live podcasts and we're going to be doing some stuff. So,
yeah, I'm definitely excited about Germany. I think, you know, I think just having the genetics in a position where we could do that, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, I got to give credit to my partner. He really had the foresight to be like, bro, let's get this shit. You know, let's do it. So, you know, I think a lot of that is what people forgot about.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, I think, you know, Germany, Australia, you know, a lot of those countries are going to be the ones that end up, you know, giving us something to be like, okay, we're going to, you know, chill. Because, you know, there are those places that are federally legal, you know.
Right.
Across the board, right? Yeah.
Well, and Germany is a beautiful place. And, you know, when I talk about them being passionate people, if you look at the cars that they produce in Germany, and then you look at the dog breeds, like the way they breed dogs, if they do that with cannabis, man, watch out California.
Everything. I think it's like, you know, manufacturing-wise, it's like, you know, as like, you know, you look at it like Japan, Germany, like, you know, those are places that, you know.
They both make good knives. If you look at the knives, the top chef knives out there are either German or Japanese.
Yeah, and that's what it goes back to. Like, it's like I relate everything to cooking. Like somebody the other day was, I was relating the plant, you know, how it tastes to like a steak, like being, you know, medium rare to well done, you know, and like finding that flour that's, you know, that perfect medium rare is like hard to find. And, you know, people don't, and if cultivators don't realize that, they never gonna get it. Like
a lot of them will tell you it's medium rare and it's well done.
Yeah, exactly. And you can taste it. You'll be like, you know.
Yeah, it's like, it's so funny. And I think there's a lot of cultivators that aren't connoisseur smokers. And if you're not a connoisseur smoker, it's hard to be a connoisseur grower.
Yeah.
And that just goes across the board. The same thing with rosin. If you're not a real rosin smoker, how are you going to make the best rosin? Who's going to QC your stuff? Your friends?
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, there are situations where I know guys that don't smoke that make amazing rosin. Like literally do not smoke at all, but they make fire ass rosin.
But it's few and far between. Yeah. And that's what it comes down to, right? And that's you know, like it's like building a team is like if you have a team of like, you know, and you know, I hate to keep saying corporate, you know, you know, but like people that are just it's not gonna get there. You gotta trust that your team's palate, you know, and it's like, you know, the teams that's really winning have, you know, you go smoke with them and you will know, like, you know, they all have that knowledge and, you know, passion of like, you know, the taste, you know, it got to get there. So
right on. So if you had one piece of advice for your younger self, what would that one piece of advice be?
Probably, you know, to close out the outside, you know, outside voices at times, you know. I think even if you, you know, respect people's opinion, like if you have a vision, that's more important than respecting someone's opinion, you know, even if they've been there before. You know, I think you just have to, you have to have trust in yourself and your vision, you know, for what you got going on.
Nice. So if people are looking to find out more about Ray Bama, where's the best place to go?
They could check out the Instagram, bro. Yeah, but I really don't, you know, I really don't post like that though. Like, you know, I'm really not into it. So like, I would say follow, you know, the Global Genetics LA page, follow the Runtz page, follow the Fire Society page, and you know, follow all, you know, all our cultivation partners, because you know, I really think that the lineups that we putting together and the QC that we're doing, it goes above and beyond what most people expect. And, we're really trying to take it there as far as, having a flower that's on that level.
Yeah, I mean, I hear it a lot. There's a lot of Runtz out there, but there's not a lot of Runtz out there.
Yeah, no, for sure. And there's no Runtz that I've stamped that's out there, just a couple little batches, but like a lot of the shit that we're doing, moving forward is going to be stamped and people will know, that there's.
Yeah, like the Flora Flame. Their Runtz was freaking amazing. Smoke's amazing, makes you feel good. I feel like that's the one thing with their living soil grown, shout out to Chris
shout out Flora Flame, and Chris. The living soil shit taught me a lot about weed too.
Yeah.
It's because that weed tastes so much different, right? Like it's like so clean in a way, like
and layers to the flavor. And I feel like some of it's not as like super crazy chirpy sometimes, but it's more flavorful. A lot of times it just tastes good all the way down, and it makes you feel like a lot of times it makes you feel amazing. And not saying that you can't get that with other things, but a lot of times the living soil, that's kind of what separates it. Yeah,
the high is definitely clear.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like the cleanness of the weed is like, and I don't know if it's the living soil never ever burns completely white.
No, because they can't flush it the same. It's for sure. It never burns quite the same. But man, it's special. It's special in its own way. And I think cultivator to cultivator doesn't mean that it's going to be living soil just because you're using living soil. You got to know how to grow too. But like the guys that are on the top level of that, it's like it all makes you feel great.
Well, see, and it goes back to like the way shit is grown is going to give you a certain taste, right?
Yeah.
If you don't know what living soil tastes like, you might hate living soil, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, and even myself, it took me a minute to appreciate living soil. It took me to that batch of candy that they had to be like, all right, well, this batch is smoking like that. And, like it comes down to that level of QC because our weed looks good. Like that's what I tell people. It's
living soil doesn't look as good always.
No, living soil doesn't look as good on the branch, but like everything smells and looks good on the branch. Like you can't go in the fucking grow room and see something that's growing and tell me that you for sure know it's going to be fire.
Maybe Hush, he might be the exception. That guy he's a monster when it comes to QC. Like he can go look at plants and be like, yeah, this is going to be the one or this is not. But that's very rare.
I gotta see that.
Yeah,
we gotta.
We gotta
do a segment.
Let's try to trick him.
We gotta do a segment.
Yeah, he's literally really good at identifying what. Well, also he knows the cultivators or whatever. Typically, so he can be like, okay, this is a batch that's gonna. I believe it's gonna check the boxes, and so that's
what a real cannabis cup is to me. Is the cannabis cup that I want to do is we give all the cultivators the same genetic.
Yep.
And we all meet up in a year. And everyone puts up 10,000.
You're speaking my language.
And we have $100,000. This is the cup that I want to put. All these other cups are bullshit to me. Like if it's not the same genetic with the same grow, like with different growers, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That we all come back, everyone enters in, and then everyone that grew gets a vote.
Yeah.
And it would be like and it'll be like 5 other votes.
Yeah. I mean, you need the other pallets too, but yeah, I feel like. It's got to be the same genetic, right? That's the only way it's on the same playing field. That's why pheno hunting, I think everybody should just smoke joints. I don't think you'd pheno hunt from a bong rip, even though some people do.
No, you can't pheno hunt from a blunt or a bong rip. Even when I QC, it got to be a straight joint. Yeah. You either got to be an element or a raw.
Yeah.
It has to be a straight joint, And if you QC in a blunt, it's just like more power to you. But I don't think it.
I know guys that do, but for me, it's not. I can't. I don't smoke blunts for one thing, but I really try to smoke the same way all the time because I'm always like trying to evaluate what I'm smoking, and sometimes I'll revisit stuff. Or I'll put stuff in my freezer, and I still put stuff in my freezer. Skittles Smalls I put in my freezer. They're so good. I just put the Smalls in. Pulled them out the other day. They were just as amazing. But
I smoke with tobacco. I smoke tobacco, with the weed. I think it's an elite combination personally. But if I'm QCing, the weed has to be plain.
Yeah,
it has to be plain.
Right.
I personally think that people have been smoking with tobacco forever. I started smoking with tobaccos, with swishers and that type of shit. So
for sure,
it's something that I think the combination of weed and tobacco is good. I think a lot of people like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there is some people that, you know, don't want any tobacco.
I'm more of a purist. Well, my friend died of lung cancer, right? Or esophageal cancer. So like I quit smoking cigarettes after that. But tobacco, I pretty much try to cut out tobacco completely. But in Europe, they smoke it with hash. It tastes so good. We do the chillums. Like I smoke chillum. I'll still smoke chillum. I'll still smoke a little bit here and there, but I feel like nicotine causes lung cancer. So that's why I kind of stay away from it. But yeah, as far as like the effect, I like the effect of nicotine.
Yeah.
I feel like it makes me focus.
Yeah. And you know, that's one of those things that's been villainized. You know, it's I don't really believe anything that mainstream media says. So even with nicotine, right? Nicotine has some healing properties that people don't even know about.
For sure. Cancer. All kind for curing cancer and stuff. I've heard about it.
They tell you nicotine, it gives you cancer.
Right. And I think it can cause certain types of cancer. It can probably take away. And it's also depending on the quality of your nicotine, just like the quality of your cannabis.
Of course. And and it goes down to that too, right? I'm not the type of person to smoke any type of tobacco as well. Like I just wouldn't smoke any type of weed. And, you know, shout out.
You're not throwing your lucky strikes.
Nah. Shout out Exotic Leaf, man. You know, that's the only type of a tobacco I want. And it's a really cool, clean type of tobacco. Like, you know, I appreciate the parent, but it doesn't mean that I smoke like that all the time. And it doesn't mean that I would QC weed with, you know, with tobacco.
No, it's like then you're basically making it a lot harder to discern the qualities in there and the flaws.
Yeah, because if the weed is good, the tobacco is just adding to it. I put very little tobacco in it. I just believe it burns better. You know, I put a little sprinkle, you know, and I think it has a little effect to it, but you know, I think it makes the whole joint burn better.
Better experience.
Yeah, but I'm real light with it. I know some people that are heavy. You know, my friends on the East Coast, they go real heavy with
75% tobacco and 25% weed. I see
that. I can't smoke with them.
My friends were doing bong rips with tobacco too, where they do tobacco and weed. And at first it was like 50-50 or it was just a little bit of tobacco and then it turned into all tobacco.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, like that's just all bad.
All tobacco bong rips?
All tobacco bong rips.
Yeah, my little cousin used to do that, man.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called.
It's called a rib.
Yeah.
It's called a rib.
Yeah.
Yeah, my little cousin, he was in doctor school.
Yeah.
Medical school. You know, at a famous school, and he was stuck on those.
Addicted to them, and I think you get addicted because the nicotine, it's so powerful.
It is. I think he was smoking, you know, some cigarette tobacco, so I think it was the nicotine is super powerful, and it's like that, you know.
Yeah,
I think you know and I think that's why you can't buy any like store-bought tobacco.
No.
I wouldn't trust any store-bought tobacco. You got to get that shit from somebody that really loves tobacco, you know, as well, you know.
Just like they love the cannabis growers that love the plants.
It's the same thing.
You want a tobacco grower.
It's the same thing. No, I lived in the Dominican Republic for 2 years, you know, doing the Runtz rap thing.
Yeah.
And it is that, you know, it's crazy how much I could equate, you know, buying tobacco into buying weed.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, it's crazy. You know, there was a bad batch of tobacco. Everybody thinks that they grow weed in the grow tobacco in the Dominican Republic. They don't even grow it there.
Yeah.
They just get sent there, you know, from Ecuador and Honduras and places like that.
They roll it the best.
No, they process it the best. They process it the best. There's no such thing as no, you know, Cuban cigar. Like, no, that shit's from Dominican. Like, there is no Cuban. You know what I mean? Like, it's a lot of things about tobacco. A lot of tobacco is the same. People are just acting like they QC it different, or they, you know, they acting like they got a different process with it. You know, like they know how to preserve it. You know, they're aging it better. They're drying it better. You know what I mean?
I love a good Dominican cigar though. Like that's my jam. The Davidoff Millenniums, the Dominican ones are really good. Yeah,
no, we went to all those big factories, like, you know, and it's crazy. The Dominican Republic is, the whole country, you know, is pretty much ran by, you know, tobacco. Everybody smokes, you know what I mean? And it's like, there's bad batches of tobacco.
Right.
You ever get you know, there's a lot of, you know, blunts that might not burn right.
Sure.
You know, they do a lot of processes to blunts that might make it. They put plastic on, you know, on them things. Like, you got to be careful. Yeah, you got to be careful with the blunts. Like, you know what I mean? Right. It's a lot of things that they do to them. So it's like, that was a big eye opener to me. Was like, when I was out there, I quit smoking blunts completely, and, you know, it just was like, I couldn't do it to, you know, like I didn't want to do it anymore. It just, you know, it turned into one of those things where it's just like, I don't know, you know, you don't want to be out there, you know, promoting something that you don't even know what's in. So, you know, it's a big thing to me. Just like, I'm getting out of this, you know, I don't even want to push forward with that.
Right.
You know?
Wild.
It's a wild game.
Yeah.
But I used to call it Humboldt Island. I used to call it Dominican Humboldt Island. It was just like smoking weed. It was just like going up to Humboldt when I, you know, when I was young.
Up in the hills?
Yeah, I was going up in the hills. Like everybody really got the same packs. They are, you know what I mean? Like they saw family mom and pop operations. It's like, it's crazy. You know what I mean? Unless you go to them big factories where, you know.
Yeah.
But that was like, you know, you couldn't even get those meetings until you start doing some type of millions and they heard your name, and you know what I mean? And they're like, okay, you want to come get tobacco from a big guy? Like, you know, this is our minimum. Like, this is how we do business. And it was like, it was eye-opening, to be honest. And it's just like, you know, it was like, that's where the weed game's headed, man. I was like, you know, I
saw it 20 years before.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm coming out of here like this is a corporate, you know, this is where corporations take shit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was like, it's, you know, it's important to have people with some morals and some ethics, like, you know, behind the products that they, you know, are promoting.
100%. You know, I feel like that's few and far between these days, but I feel like that's the direction it needs to go. But there will always be people with passion in this industry, because I feel like the people with passion, there's nowhere else they would fit.
Of course. Right? And, you know, some of the big guys are doing it right. You know what I mean?
There are some big guys. Yeah, I see some really big companies doing it right. I see some really big companies completely doing it wrong.
Mm-hmm. And it's just like, you know, I think the bottom line is everybody got to smoke.
Totally.
If you got some people in the, you know, I want to see it from down to the lawyers, man, down to the fucking janitor. Hey, man, everybody here smoking, man. Totally. And I think, you know, when I'm building my team, that's how we are. It's everybody smoking. Everybody's on that.
Yeah.
You know,
on that same vibration.
Everybody wants to bring some pack around. That's awesome. You know, everybody wants to show that off to the team. You know, everybody wants to get that.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to get that. So, it's, you know,
well, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a great show.
Yeah.
Yeah, look forward to doing some collaborations potentially with you in the future. At least showing you that chocolate Runtz.
Yeah, let's
I feel like it's special.
Nah, you right here. I'm gonna come smoke with you all the time.
Yeah, dude. Anytime you want to come by. Yeah, and so I got 3 phenos of chocolate Runtz. One that is a straight haze.
Yeah.
One that is a chocolatey Runtz that's like, oh yeah, that's
I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember a chocolate.
Yeah, it was a chocolatey haze, right?
Yeah.
Chocolatey terps with haze like that. Super silver, sativa-y, very that terpenoline, like very much like that haze profile.
Yeah.
That sativa haze profile, right?
So it's used haze Jack Herrera?
Yeah, kind of like Jack Herrera, similar, right? And so it has that.
But it's haze Jack Herrera is what we call Jack Herrera.
I would say
haze.
Jack, a lot of people get haze and Jack confused. And yeah,
but
Jack
is haze different to you?
A little bit, but not much.
Not much.
Not much.
So
Like super silver haze, amnesia haze, Liberty haze. Those are the hazes when I think of haze. You know, then there's champagne haze. There's all the European hazes.
Okay.
And so I got exposed to those. And Jack Herrera is its own thing, right? And it does have some of the haze characteristics and qualities.
So to an East Coaster, is haze different than Jack Herrera?
Yeah, I think so. Like if you think of Cuban Black, Cuban Black haze is different.
Yeah.
Right. Cuban Black is something that's like a real sativa plant that's like 14 weaker. The bud structure is crazy, whereas Jack is a very shorter flowering.
I don't even think I've ever seen Jack indoor. Like I've only maybe seen it in, you know, that outdoor.
I have some Jack
form.
at the house. I'll bring you some.
Yeah.
But yeah, and Jack's cool. But chocolate Runtz, we have one pheno that's straight hazy, kind of Runtsy structure, but hazy on the nose. We have the number 2, which is my favorite, which is right in the middle. It's got chocolate notes, but it's got Runtz.
Okay.
And then we got one that's definitely a Runtz leaner. We've saved all 3 of them.
Okay.
And I feel like the one in the middle is going to be the marketable one, where it's like people that appreciate Runtz are going to be like, oh yeah, this is Runtz, but it's different.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's like the hard part, right? It's like when you have something that's so different, it's like, you know, will people appreciate it or not? And that was another thing. It's like, you know, I think a lot of people are like gonna be chasing is like them classic strains, right?
Right. Blue Dream. I made my own candy dream.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
You Blue Dream
double
Costco
lemon
candy?
cherry. So I did the lemon cherry gelato S1, and I basically S1'd it and selected for terps. I selected for terps, and I got vigor out of it too, and like a bigger yielding plant. But I used that as my donor, and I put that on Blue Dream, and there's very distinct phenotypes. One that's very much Blue Dream with a hint of candy. And so I think that's going to, people want those old nostalgic flavors.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that's, where it's leaning. You'll probably see a lot of these brands in if they are in a position to have these connections everyone's going to try to run back to that old shit.
Right.
Like, cause that's where, that's really what shows if you got it. Right. Like to me, it's like, that's what's impressive, right? It's like, who can run back and get a GDP? Who can run back and get, and get a sour that's hitting?
Someone's going to make $1 million bringing back GDP. I mean, I would love my ZDP to be that. But like, regardless, if somebody brought back the original GDP and had quality packs of it, they would make $1 million off that. No problem. It would they'd be printing money.
And if you got it, DM me.
Yeah, exactly. Like, let's print money together. Literally, let's print money together. You got that GDP, the real purple.
Yeah,
I'm telling you,
if you got anything worth,
that's a disruptor, dude. That's gonna cause earthquakes, bro.
If you got anything that's old or new, man, DM me. Yeah. I was just playing.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for coming on the show, man. Let's do this again.
Yeah, for sure. Let's do it.
Thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe down below.